So, in this time period where marijuana is becoming recognized largely as a medicine and as beneficial for a lot of people, I want to speak a little bit on my experiences and on what some lawyers are still doing even today in 2023 to help men get away with abusing women. When I was a young woman, I was exposed to a multitude of different substances, as most young people in America are. And I used marijuana recreationally for fun when I was about like 19 and 20 on a pretty regular basis. And in that time period, I didn't have any issues with acknowledging that I used it for fun. I wasn't addicted to it. And I functioned very easily and regularly in my day-to-day life. I was in a negative relationship in that time period, so that did contribute to me being too complacent to what is considered abuse in the eyes of most human beings. So for me, nothing was really a constant in my life except for tobacco until the age of 26, and then occasionally after that. But for me, marijuana was sort of like off and on. It was casual, and if I used it, I still went to work. I still was aware of my surroundings. I still had a good memory. I could take about 42 people's orders and remember them just fine without pen and paper. So there was no complications there. I can still tell you the weather of that day, the dress that I was wearing, you know, that kind of memory. So around 23 to 25, I sort of stopped using marijuana recreationally. Mostly, I feel like because of the company that I was around. There's just certain people that are not in a vibration that when you're using it recreationally, you really want to be around. And I needed to kind of remove myself from people in my life, but also I just kind of stopped drinking. I stopped smoking weed for fun, and I started to instead just like focus on my life, what I wanted, what I was going to do with my life. And it felt really nice to focus on everything that I wanted to accomplish. If I had been around different people, I would have done that with the use of marijuana in my life, and it wouldn't have affected me negatively because, again, it's a vibrational thing. Now, in 2018, I had my first shoulder surgery, and my ex-abuser encouraged me to use medical marijuana instead of the narcotics because I wouldn't really take them. I was cutting them in half and then taking a half at a time, and after the first few days after surgery, I would stop taking them and just try to take Advil or ibuprofen. And evidently I was still a little bit grumpy because of the pain. So he was trying to recommend marijuana as a natural medicine. And I never judged other people for using it as a medicine. I just didn't really think about using it as a medicine myself at that time in my life. So now this is where it gets fun to explain, but it's really, really important about how men and their very awful lawyers who use fallacy as a weapon against women, even though he has daughters himself. Shame on that man. He knows who he is. Now, aside from that, before I danced at a festival that promoted marijuana, both recreationally and medicinally. And I had no problem with people who did either of those things. If you smoked weed for fun, awesome. If you used it as medicine, wonderful. I only had an issue with people who would say it was medicine when it wasn't, and then they would take away from those of us that use it as medicine or would need to in the future. Because when I was dancing with this belly dance group, where it's known that they are marijuana activists, and we donated our time for free to a lot of these events to support studies with kids with cancer. And in this time period, I didn't use marijuana recreationally at all, or any substance for that matter. I actually hardly even drank caffeinated coffee at that point in my life and didn't eat chocolate afternoon. But through me performing at these different festivals and events, there were these beautiful belly dance pictures of me with like a pot leaf in the background. So I of course posted them because it's me sharing my gifts after starting belly dancing in 2011 and deciding in 2012 that I would focus on it as an avenue for myself. Finally, in 2016, being a part of a show where I performed, and I was so happy to share my gifts with the world. And these beautiful photos were taken. And there's a pot leaf in the background, which is a beautiful medicine, and for people who use it recreationally, it's also beautiful. And before this, you will see that there is a photo that I am speaking on, happily dancing, and yes, a marijuana leaf is cut out, featured on the stage in the background. Now, it is important to note that in 2018, pretty reluctantly, not because I judged it wrongfully or because I had any issue with other people using marijuana recreationally or medicinally. That's why I supported the cause. I believed in it, genuinely. But for myself, I had some resistance, and I worked regularly with mantras that I could say that helped me take marijuana without feeling like I was doing something wrong. I mean, of course, I had paid an amount of money in a fine because I had been caught when I used it recreationally with amount that was this much because I smoked sometimes on my lunch break. And that day, I didn't smoke that nugget of weed that was about this size, and it cost me $300 of a fine, and that charge of slandering my good name. That charge happened to me in 2007. Now, of course, when I'm sitting on a stand and I'm not represented by a lawyer because the state takes over the case, I have to rely on the prosecutor to actually be the one who's going to speak up for me. Well, and that's if he knows me at all and doesn't listen to small town gossip and drama where it seems like nobody actually really knew me at all or even took the chance to try. Fine with me, except when it fucks up my ability to receive proper medical attention or protection from a scary man who hit me in the spine with a chair, causing me to have a spinal cord injury. The amount of marijuana that I used as medicine was a smaller amount than most people use to have a good time recreationally. I took it primarily internally, and I used it kind of like people would use Aleve or Advil. I've been very transparent and open about it, not because I want to receive all of the slander and gossip to my very good name, but because I want to try to help people with what I've discovered and learned. And one thing that I've learned how to do is revive a spinal cord injury caused by blunt force trauma through using herbs and cannabis as medicine. And that's it. And I'm pretty sure that my voice deserves to be heard in that regard to help people. And not only that, but to also speak on behalf of all women who could be going to court to face an abuser who is going to exploit them for using marijuana as medicine wrongfully because they want to try to get away with what they did. And both him and the lawyer know it. But there's this thing that I believe in, and it's all about karma. And I know that no matter what, I will rise, and those two will not, for their actions in a time period that was pivotal to tell the truth and do the right thing. So please take into consideration that just because a woman may promote an event by dancing at it, and there's a marijuana leaf featured in the background, it doesn't mean she's some heavy-duty pot smoker. Again, not judging you if you are, but I just want to remind you that I began using marijuana as medicine for a shoulder surgery in 2018, over halfway through the year, and then on and off hardly could use it because I felt so guilty and wrong about using it as an adult woman, and I'm not sure why that is, but I genuinely did. And so by the time I settled into using it as medicine, it was just in time for him to hit me in the spine with a chair. And then he spent the entire summer being a psychological, manipulative torturer to me, doing other horrific things that I've also posted about, and then diminishing my name and allowing people to spread lies and rumors about me on top of, I guess, the already lies and rumors that were thought about me. So, in turn, those photographs helped a man get away with abusing me, and that should never have happened. Just like he never should have gotten away with what he did to me at all. Just like my medical records never should have been covered up. And just like I should have been able to help people with spinal cord injury by now by being paired off with a spinal cord specialist who we could actually talk about what I did and what not to do, because I also died a lot from autonomic dysreflexia. This has been very serious, but I'm really proud of myself for being so strong-minded that even in the face of a lawyer whose main weapon is fallacy against women that he knows his client abused, I still was strong-minded. And he could only use his web trap bullshit on me one time in that entire hour I sat there with a spinal cord injury on the stand and still stood for that jury at the end that he needed to pay extra for to help him get away with what he did.